The Old Man's Irish Pub is open. Welcome. It's the day before St. Patrick's Day. I'll be working tomorrow, so I probably won't be doing anything for the St. Patrick's Day, so I thought I'd do it today. I did have a request that I gave a little bit of background about myself and where I am, or how I got where I am right now. So I thought that might be a good idea for a second episode. So I thought that's what we'd do. As you notice here, I've got a little pour here and a Murphy's Irish Stout. As far as Murphy's goes for a stout out of Ireland, I actually prefer it to Guinness that we get here in the States out of the can. I would really like to try the Guinness Nitro Surge. I do have the little Nitro Surge tool, but they don't sell the Nitro Surge here in the U.S., so you gotta use the Nitro Surge. There's a little method. I'm not going to go into that. There's some YouTube videos out there that you can look at and do that with. As far as the pour, I'm doing the Whistler double oaked. As you notice, I've got my little sticker on there. Not big enough to have a barrel pick, but this is my bottle pick. I really enjoy the Whistler double oaked. It's a great little sipper. You can use it in cocktails and that kind of stuff as well. It's just a really nice, well-rounded pour that's easily a daily sipper if that's what you're looking for. So let's get into my background. Let's get into my history of how I ended up in love with Irish whiskey the way that I am. Straight out of high school, I graduated and went into the Army, and everybody drank beer. I was a big beer drinker in the Army. Did my tour and everything, got out, went back home, and everybody drank beer. If we went to the bar, we'd have, several beers. And then when we wanted to treat ourselves, or we were wanting to celebrate, or we were getting fancy, let's say, we'd go in and we'd order up a Crown and Coke, or a Crown and Pepsi, depending on, the bar you typically had Coke, but if we were getting fancy at home, at one of our houses or whatever, we'd have a Crown and Pepsi. That was big time, So, but that was on occasion. Most of the time, like I said, it was a lot of beer. We won't get into what type of beer or anything like that, but it was an American beer. Let's just leave it there. Did that for several years. Then decided, you know what, I'm not into the drinking. I kind of went out on my own, wasn't hanging around friends as much and everything. So I just went ahead and quit drinking, period, for about 4 years, a little over 4 years. Didn't miss it, it was a decision I had made. And like I said, I wasn't hanging out with friends and stuff. And as I mentioned in that first one is, alcohol, whiskey, beers, whatever, is made to be enjoyed. It's made to be enjoyed with friends, sharing times and stories. If you notice behind me, I got Stories and Sips. That's an Irish club that I belong to. Hope it's all right if I give them a shout out here. But and that's it. It's about the friendships that you make, enjoying whatever kind of a sip that you enjoy. So during that time period, I wasn't hanging out with a lot of people. I was kind of introverted. But anyway, I got through that, and kind of bad timing. I met my wife. Well, actually, I didn't meet my wife, but I got married. And she enjoyed a glass of wine of an evening, and I'd sit there and drink my Pepsi. Well, after a while, it's like, you know what? I really think that I could enjoy something. So I grabbed a beer, and beer just did not taste good to me. It just did not hit the spot. It was, you know, it was kind of, and it might have been just the time of year. I think it might have been a little bit cooler, you know, so the cold beer didn't really set well. And I thought, you know what, I used to really enjoy the specialty, you know, the whatever of a Crown and Pepsi. So I went and bought me a bottle of Crown. Got me, you know, I already had Pepsi, of course. I was doing that, and it's like, yep, that just hit the spot. So I would sit there and I would drink a Crown and Pepsi with my wife, you know, while she was drinking her wine, whether it was after work or on a weekend, or, you know, going out and doing something. You know, if I could have a Crown and Pepsi, that's what I had. If I couldn't, then I wasn't drinking anything. And I did that for several years, and then here, about 3 years ago, sorry, I looked it up. It was 3 years ago, pretty much to the day. It was the first of March, or, you know, first part of March, leading up to St. Patrick's Day. I had some online friends. This particular friend happens to be down in Missouri. He's Irish, and he loves Irish whiskey. And him and I had been talking, you know, about how I'm enjoying some whiskey and that sort of thing. And he asked me straight up, he says, you're Irish, right? And I said, yeah, I was told, you know, growing up that I was Irish, Scotch, and Welsh. He goes, well, why aren't you drinking Irish whiskey? If you're Irish, you should be drinking Irish whiskey, not Canadian whiskey. And I thought, you know, I don't really ever recall drinking Irish whiskey. Maybe I had a shot of Jameson or something back in the day, but I can't remember anything else. So I thought, all right, well, he called me out on it. So next time we went to the store, I went down and I bought me a bottle of Irish whiskey. I think it was Jameson Black Label. I came home and I made me a Jameson Black Label and Pepsi. And boy, it was really good. It was a lot different than that Crown and Pepsi. And I'm just like, yeah. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, I got me some Irish whiskey. And this is wonderful. You know, thank you. You know, I'm glad. Now I'm actually, you know, drinking the whiskey of my ancestors. And this went on for, maybe 2 or 3 months. You know, I did a different bottle. I was trying something different all the time and just enjoying everything that I was doing there. But it was always Highball and Pepsi. And one day him and I were talking online, and he said, you're not drinking Irish whiskey. And I said, what do you mean? I'm showing you the pictures, you know, and everything else. He goes, yeah, you're not drinking Irish whiskey. You're drinking Pepsi with a little bit of Irish whiskey in it. That's completely different. And I'm like, so what? I'm not drinking Irish whiskey unless I'm drinking it neat. He goes, yeah. I was like, all right, well, I remember back in the day, you know, 30 years ago or whatever it was, I couldn't drink whiskey straight. It burned too much. It was just, and it was nasty, and, you know, but I'll give it a try. So before I decided to do this, I thought, you know, I think through the years, I've seen or heard that there's a proper way to drink whiskey. So I did some search on YouTube, and sure enough, I found a video, you know, how to properly drink whiskey, and so I watched that and everything, and then, all right, let's pour me a shot of whiskey and let's try to drink it proper. And I don't remember which one it was. I'm sorry, I don't remember this, but so I poured me out a shot, you know, and they say to nose it, you know, so I get it out, and, you know, I nose it, and it's like, oh, that smells pretty good. You know, I hadn't nosed any Irish anything, you know. I just poured my glass with my Pepsi, and, you know, so I'm like, ooh, that's got some really nice flavors, or some smell to it, you know, some nice notes coming up. And, you know, it's like, okay, you know, maybe this ain't as bad as what I remembered. So I kept doing it, you know, and the video said, you know, do this for a while, get your nose and your senses used to what you're getting ready to drink, and it'll suit you better, you know, it'll hit you better, so to speak. So I kept doing that, and I went through the time. And Oh, wow. There's flavors in here that I never knew could exist in any whiskey, let alone Irish. Um, and it just opened my eyes so big. Um, so I started exploring, doing different whiskeys and trying, not different Irish whiskeys. Let me be straight there. Um, I was trying these different Irish whiskeys, and I was just amazed at how many wonderful flavors and how much difference there is in the bottles of Irish whiskey. I've got some behind me here that I set up for my little background, kind of give it more of an Irish pub feel here. Um, but it's just, there's so much, I've got some red spot and some blue spot sitting up there. They're completely different from each other, you know. And to be honest with you, there's days that red spot is just perfect. It just hits solid. Other days, that blue spot's what hits. Uh, so I was exploring all these different ones, and then I wanted to see, because where I'm at, there's very little Irish whiskey available at the local stores. So I decided to go online and buy some online. And I got into a group, Stories and Sips, and got on some Facebook groups there, and found some places that I could order stuff out of Ireland. And I bought this bottle. It was Clan Cola, 7-year-old, and its description was Christmas in a bottle. It's like, oh, who doesn't like Christmas? I better have one of these. So I ordered a bottle up and got it here, and I cracked it open, and that was it. It's like, okay, there is such a world out there that needs to be explored, and I want to be the one to explore it. Now, I know I'm not the only one exploring it. Believe me, I have a lot of friends out there that are way ahead of me in this exploration and stuff, but oh, it's just so wonderful. It's and that's where I fell deeply in love with Irish whiskey. Now, I still enjoy a Scotch, and there's some good Scotch out there, and I'm not opposed to drinking any of that. I enjoy an American single malt, which, in my opinion, I hope nobody gets upset with me, but a single malt is a single malt. They're a little bit different, but they're all single malts. They're all 100% malted barley, whether it's from the U.S., whether it's from Canada, whether it's from Ireland, or whether it's from Scotland. Okay, it's a single malt. Okay, there's differences after that, but it's all single malts, so they all have kind of that same profile to me. Yeah, the barley's different. If you're getting a terroir or whatever, you're going to have different flavors from the different areas and all that, and that's fine. But the pot still is my favorite. It's wonderful, and there is some American pot still companies out there, and whatnot. But like I said, for me, I prefer the Irish. I like American rye. Part of that is my love for the pot still. I think you get some of the rye and pot still spiciness. I think they kind of are similar, not the same, but they're similar. And I think that's why I enjoy a rye. And if you really want to get solid, Powers Rye is really good. So if you see that on the shelf, you might want to give that a try if you enjoy a rye. I went through what I first started making this transition into drinking neat. I was in a club, the Whiskey Lodge, and a lot of bourbon fans in there. And I had people tell me, oh, you got to try this bottle. You got to try this bottle. You got to try this bottle. And so I was doing it. I'm on an exploration here, and I went through a lot of bourbons. Bourbon just did not do it for me. They all were pretty much the same. Yeah, you could taste the difference in everything, but everything had that base DNA that wasn't exciting to me. Now I'll drink a bourbon every now and again, and I've tried good bourbon. I've tried mediocre, and I've tried low-end bourbon, and like I said, It just doesn't hit me right. So not that it's bad, it's just that's not my preference. So like I said, I love the Irish, the variety in it, the stories behind it, and that's kind of where I'm wanting to get to. You see, Mia even says that the Irish whiskey's wonderful. But the stories behind some of these bottles and stuff is very interesting, and the distilleries, and so that's kind of my idea here, is just kind of go have stories with my sips. But so we'll go down that, and I'd like you to join me with it. And if you have any requests or any comments or anything like that, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will try to respond to it. Or if you're asking for a request, just like this episode here is based off of a request for my background. You know, why am I where I'm at in my whiskey journey, my Irish whiskey journey? So that's where I got there. I don't think I mentioned it, but after I started down this Irish journey road, I did one of those DNA tests, and don't disqualify me on the Irish whiskey side now, but I have 0 Irish in me. 0 Irish, 0 Scotch, and 0 Welsh. I have none of those in me. But I do have a ton of others, just none of those. But I still, I've got a glass that says Irish-ish and Irish at heart. And with it being St. Patrick's Day, everybody says on St. Patrick's Day we're all a little bit Irish. Well, I just hope that the Irish community accepts me as an honorary Irishman, because I love their country. I was over there last year and just thoroughly enjoyed myself. Truly love their whiskey, and I've developed a lot of good friends out of Ireland, and I've developed a lot of friends here in the U.S. that have a love for Irish whiskey as well. So let me get a drink of this Murphy's here. Is that Murphy's? Out of the can here in the U.S. Just like a Guinness, it's nice and creamy. Got some nice flavors. You know the flavors if you drink Guinness. This is very similar. So a wonderful stout, Irish stout there, to go along with my Irish whiskey. I think that kind of leads me up to where I'm at now. This is where I developed my love and everything for the Irish whiskey, and why I'm trying to push the Irish whiskey. I'm not pushing it. I'd like everybody to enjoy it more. Like I said, I try to do it around town here. The more Irish whiskey that the stores sell, the more that they can bring in. And maybe I won't have to buy so many bottles from Ireland to get the bottles that I like and enjoy. But I'm still going to buy them from Ireland, because there's so many over there, and a lot of them are very small distilleries, and they don't have the distribution to the States. They might make some markets in the States, but most of them aren't going to see where I'm at, because there's not a big demand for Irish whiskey up here. So I will still buy there, and I will still support the distilleries that I love, and a lot of them know who I am, and and know that I will continue to buy their products as long as they keep putting them out and whatnot. I've got friends over there that kind of help me out and get me some bottles and get them over to a distributor to get them out, or not a distributor, but a distribution point to get them over to me, and I appreciate those people. Like I said, I'd like you to like and subscribe and share these if you want. Let's get the love out there for the Irish whiskey. And please keep coming back to the Old Man's Irish Pub when you see I post something. I'd like you to share my journey, and I need to make more friends. So let's see you every time I post one of these. And like I said, this was a request, and it is St. Patrick's weekend, so I thought I'd go ahead and do this, but you probably won't see me for a little bit later. So thank you for joining us in the pub today. And one of the things that was requested is, it's your whiskey, you drink it your way. So Everybody have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day, and we'll see you again. And Sláinte.